Hey everyone, welcome to the Revenue Growth Architects podcast. It's Chrissy and Charlie here. And today, same thing, 3 topics. So we'll get straight to it. So today, first, we're going to talk about AI. Shocker. We've been talking about AI a lot on the podcast.
Is there anything else to talk about these days?
No.
I mean, there is, but yeah.
Probably, yeah. It's still top of mind, right? Like, I think, we could talk about all the kind of basic stuff all day, but when we think about the future and what's coming, that's AI. So today we're going to be talking about our other favorite topic, which is data with AI. So we're going to talk about 5 things, problems, issues with data that can really trip up AI if you're trying to use AI to analyze that data, which is what people essentially want to get to. Most companies don't have data analysts, and they think that AI can be a great tool to use to actually analyze the data for them. But as we know, that analysis is only as good as the data that you put into it. So here are the 5 problems with data that you would need to address before trying to use AI to analyze it.
And I posted about it on LinkedIn recently. I think a lot of people kind of have this unrealistic expectation for AI where you could just plug it in to your CRM and just ask questions, and it'll be like, what from our marketing is working the best? And the AI will be able to do this magic with your CRM data and then spit out exactly what's working, what's not working, what budgets to cut, what budgets to invest in more.
I think people who are non-technical have always had unrealistic expectations on what you can do.
That's true, actually. It's like if there's like the base level unrealistic expectation on what you can get out of data.
Like MOPS is easy, or like data is easy.
How to set it up. And then there's the unrealistic expectation on what data can do to answer decisions. Like it's never going to be perfect. We talk about that a lot. And a lot of people expect it to be perfect. Side point, I was having a conversation with a client, someone in finance on their team, and I was trying to explain how marketing data is never going to be perfect, right? And his reaction was like shock and fear, right? Because he's a finance guy. He's expecting like dollar in, dollar out. We should be able to perfectly attribute everything, and we're going to have crystal clear analysis from this. And I was trying to explain that it isn't that easy. And then I walked him through like, okay, if you've done a big purchase recently, how did that go down, right? And he started to talk about, oh, well, I did this and I did that. Or like, oh yeah, we bought this software and I was put into a nurture and I filled out a form and I did some research. And I was like, okay, well, what out of all of those activities should get the attribution? How should you probably do it? And it started to click for him. Anyway, side point, back to the AI.
I feel like it's more like for him to be like, it's kind of like economics. Like, it's always a little bit of like a model that's like not perfect that you're trying to do. Real economics, you have to use like calculus and all these things like that. And even those are like essentially like somewhat flawed. I don't know if I wanted to give him another way to think about it. But anyway.
Yeah, I think you just have to be realistic. Right?
Yeah.
But then if you take that and you go, okay, well, now we've got AI that should be able to do, the promise of AI in people's minds is that it should be able to maybe find patterns that humans can't, or analyze the data in a way that humans can't, or maybe just analyze it in speed, like be able to do it a lot quicker.
Yeah.
But as we all know, whether it's a human reading a report or looking at data, or if it's an AI looking at a report or looking at data, if the data is crap, a human and AI are both going to spit out bad results, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's so many ways your data can be bad. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And like what could really just trip up AI? And then we came up with 5 different reasons. So do you want to go with the first one about the different variables that you're talking about?
Yeah. So I think if you're going to do any kind of like advanced reporting or dashboarding, stuff like that, there's usually like certain variables that you want to run your reporting off of. We see this actually as an issue just in general when we're trying to like help clients prep for that. So usually they want to see things by region or by budget owner or even by like product or team or whatnot. Just depends on the variables that they want to do.
Industry, right?
Industry, things like that. And yes, they maybe have some of that data. It might not be consistent. It might be like varied across like different fields. And so people are doing this like wonky way of like, okay, well, look at this industry field. And then if not, look at this industry field. Well, unless you're actually like basically writing all that in and telling the AI to like, okay, now go look at this field, this field. It's like, it's not really going to be able to run that data. It could make its best judgments, but it's just not going to be perfect, I would say, or it's not going to be the way that you would want it to be. So one, it's like identifying what those variables are. Two, making sure there's like a consistent and like those variables in the data that you have in it match to like what you would run a report on. And then making sure, which is kind of a sub, like, alluding to one of our other sub bullets here, but making sure that that data is, populated and consistent. Yeah, it's just, I mean, even if you're not prepping your data for AI, this is a good thing to go and look at, because we talked about this on the podcast before, but like even these like very important variables, you like dive into them and they could be wrong or they're, inconsistent, and the company's actually relying on that data to actually make sure that they're building reporting and dashboards that are relevant to teams and people, so they can make better decisions.
Yeah, I mean, if it's good for AI, it's good for people.
Right.
So even if you don't care about analyzing your data with AI, this is a lot of good advice on just how to get your data in order. But I think on the variable side, humans we're involved in like so many different conversations. Like you're hearing, so you might be speaking to your sales team. During your onboarding of the new company, they're talking about, oh, we care about this segment, we care about that segment, or we care about this industry. And you're like picking up all of these things. You kind of intuitively know, okay, I want to be able to pivot my data on X, Y, Z, right? But if you just plug in AI that maybe isn't trained on that and say, show me some patterns, you might not care about industry, but it might come back and show, okay, here is all of your data by industry. We noticed that these different industries. Maybe that's interesting if you don't care about it for AI to find that pattern, or maybe it's just completely useless. So being able to train your team and a potential AI analyst on the segments that you care about, or the different ways you'd want to pivot that data, is really important. So then it knows what to try and what to look for in the data. So I think just really identifying those variables, and then like you mentioned, some of the other options, some of the other ideas that we have here are related to this on how you build out that data.
Yeah. I mean, the second one is just like completely obvious too. It's like bad data. So like if you have bad data and you put bad data into like any model, whether an AI is trying to, analyze the data, like it's going to be bad, like the analysis, or it's just going to be incomplete, or it's just going to be wrong. So like that analysis per se. So bad data in, bad data out. So really, I mean, we talk about this all the time, but like data rules everything in operations, in my opinion. So the more you can really put a strong practice around your data, the better. And this is where I actually had a video on this, and I maybe talked about on the podcast, but like this is also where AI can be useful. Try and use AI to plug in your bad data, to find your bad data, to clean up your bad data. Like that's actually a more useful place right now for marketers to use AI.
Yeah, and there's so many different types of bad data, right? There's like crap data coming through forms, right? Maybe someone has misspelt something in a list upload. Maybe you have different standardization processes that aren't capturing everything. There could be just loads of junk data in the system, right? Like if AI, that a lot of these tools, they're able to handle quite a big amount of data and context, but say you've got a million contacts in your database, and 200 or 300,000 of them are just crap, and you're feeding that all in. That's another 200, 300,000 records of data that it's going to have to go through to try and figure out the patterns, and it might completely skew things, right? Like you might have a really high conversion rate, but in all of these crap leads, because of like you've got this bad data and it's like accidentally showing they've converted from one stage to the other. maybe like, engaged to MQL or something, and that could completely skew all of your data. So, the next two are also going to be about data, but there's 3 different flavors of data. So the bad data is like, everyone knows like kind of intuitively what this is. It's like you've just got crap data. And it could be a record is a crap data, or it could be data in individual fields. And then so the third one on our list, this is incomplete data.
Yeah.
So it doesn't necessarily mean that the data is bad. You might have a good contact record, you might have a good account record, but there might be really important fields that you need to be able to run that analysis that is just missing.
Yeah.
So it could be your source data, right? It could be that, okay, we started this new channel and we forgot to plug it into our centralized processing. We're not updating the source data. It could be where we suck at enrichment. One client we're working with right now, right, they don't really have enrichment baked into their new contact process. So an important field that they're looking for, which is employee count, which is really important for their segments, that has like a 23% completion. Yeah. Now, if that is the case, how are you able to analyze, whether you're a human or AI, whether your different segments are converting at different in different amounts, or have an association with pipeline, or getting more engagement in certain channels, etc. So
I also have one thing there where it may not also be as obvious, but it is incomplete data is, so if you're a company who's trying to just maintain an all contact database, so one of the things that like companies will do, and we have a client going through this right now, so it's just top of mind for me, but they convert a lot of things, unless it's matched to an existing account, they put it under like this placeholder account. Well, when you look at the data on those people, you can't run it by company name. It's just going to be placeholder account. You can't run it by employee count. It's just going to be whatever's on the placeholder account. Like you can't run it by industry and so forth. And yes, you can see a little bit on the contact, but actually for them, it was like the way that their data model is, it pulls from the account if it's contact. So they're missing all that data, or it's incomplete data on all those people. And not to mention, it's not really a good practice because it also can cause what Salesforce calls data skew. If you have too many contacts, even in general, even if they match that account under the account, it can cause issues. So we're trying to like decouple that for them. But just wanting to say, like, it's not always the obvious things that are causing incomplete data.
I mean, I would add to that another couple. You might be using Salesforce Campaign Membership for multi-touch attribution that you're feeding into an AI to analyze. There might be a whole channel or program that for some reason, whoever set it up, the contacts aren't being added to the Salesforce campaign. That would be incomplete data as well. Again, we were looking at this for one of our clients recently, actually yesterday, and there was a whole few events that didn't have any Salesforce campaign membership. It's quite easy to report on that. You just go and look at new leads and contacts that don't have any Salesforce campaign membership, and then pivot on what created them. If you're having like the record source fields or anything like that. So another thing, that is, or you might have, you're not having contact roles and opportunities. So now that's incomplete data, that's right? Because those multi-touch attribution records require that.
Yeah.
So you have to think through that full process, right? There's like incomplete data on contacts, incomplete data be it like on the account. There could be incomplete data with the linkages between those, campaign membership. Just think about where you don't have a record where you should have one, right? Yeah. And there's probably way more areas that we don't have one. We haven't even talked about.
Yeah. So a little bit different than incomplete data, but what we see a lot of the time, and what operators are probably like gonna hate hearing this one because they are like, oh, I have this, but it's just inconsistent data. So you have industry field, a million industries. You have like maybe your pick list, but you're not sticking to it. You have just a bunch of different industries. It's not standardized. That's like a common one. Or even source information. You maybe have a lot of people with inconsistent data because there hasn't been some work on normalizing that or putting some integrity. You might have old values that never got migrated when you move to a new system. These are all things that are like, maybe depending on how far back you're looking at your data, you can be okay with. But you just have to think of, okay, what are our goals for looking at the data? Are we going to see inconsistent values there? And there's a lot of really easy things you can do to pick up on inconsistent data, because you know at least what you're expecting. And you can report on anything that doesn't match what you're expecting. So a lot of times for clients, we build out their data monitoring dashboard. So especially for things like lead source, common fields that you're talking about, like industry values, employee size, things that really matter. And so you can report on things that don't match to what they're expecting.
Yeah, as you were talking, I was just thinking of a scenario. You feed AI a load of data, and you've got these really badly standardized industry fields, and I was trying to think of a good example, like, okay, manufacturing and then manufacturer or something like that, right? But like for some reason, manufacturer contacts are converting into meetings at like 60%, and manufacturing is like 12%. And it comes back and it says, you should, manufacturer, you should start marketing more to them. But then you're like, okay, but if I add those two things together, my conversion rate is like averaged out to in the middle. And it's like,
or it's going to tell you the one that maybe is the outlier is the least performing one. It's like, no shit, because that is not an expected value. Like,
right. And then, how it's going to have to be pretty smart to be able to recognize where it is just purely like a lack of standardization that has split those two things into two different categories.
You could train it maybe, but
but then it might end up having false positives. You might want, like tech versus SaaS versus whatever, and then it might just combine that. So like, you need to decide, right?
Yeah.
What are our values for industry, and how do we want to segment? Back to the variables, right? And then we need to consistently apply that data, and then now you're feeding the AI what it is. Last one, so number 5, fragmented data. So we've talked about this, a lot when it comes to Project Insight, our Salesforce unmanaged package, which essentially unifies your funnel lifecycle data into one custom object. But you could think about this, outside of that. It's like providing a data set that you can easily analyze in one table, right? So if you just plug in something into CRM and you're going, okay, show me, I want to know, what channels are converting at the highest rate into opportunities. And there's no data set, like you've got all these opportunities that do not have contact roles. There's no way to tie the channel data, which is living on the contact, to the opportunity data, which is living on the opportunity. How do you expect it to figure that out, right? It's just not.
Yeah.
It's going to just fight, like maybe you've got some leads with converted lead information report, and they've got some contact roles. It's going to look at those. So really being clear with yourself about, okay, what am I trying to report, and what are the models that I'm trying to build out here? How do I unify the data into one table? There are different ways of doing this, right? You don't need a custom object. You can do this in data warehouse. Don't love it, because then we've talked about this a lot before. Your reports in BI look a certain way, and then the data underneath in CRM looks a different way, and everyone starts to like get a little bit of lack of trust there. But it is possible. We've got some clients who still do that. So, but being very deliberate around how do you join all of this data together so we can provide a data set. And like we said back earlier, this is all good stuff to do for humans too, right? Like if you think about AI is smart, really smart, and it's probably going to get smarter and smarter and smarter. But you still want to be able to feed it data in a way that a human could understand, or otherwise it's going to have, a big variance on quality, I would say. At least at this point, maybe I'm going to be completely wrong. In like a few years' time, you could just give it a load of junk and it will just figure it out. But at least today, you probably have to be even more deliberate for it than you could a human, because a human can navigate the nuance relatively. I wanted to say really well, but maybe relatively well is a better way of saying that.
Yeah. All right. So those 5 things gotta look out for. But honestly, in general, like these are all the basics, like everyone wants to know like, oh, what cool, sexy thing do I do? It's like, just clean your data. Just do, it's like brushing your teeth. Like there's like a few things that you just like need to do often. And if you don't do them,
right? Yeah.
It makes a big difference.
You have no teeth.
Yeah. It makes a huge difference. So.
That's a good analogy, actually. Yeah. It's the important stuff that feels insignificant sometimes.
Or sleeping. People are like, oh, I have all these health issues. Have you ever thought about sleeping more? I don't know. Like, it's just some things like the answers are just right in front of us, but we just don't want to hear it. We want to hear like it's something else that we just haven't tried yet.
Take all these crazy supplements and do all this, but it's like, no, just go to bed a couple hours earlier. Don't go to bed at 1.
Can help you do that, but what I mean is like it's the basics. Like nail the basics first. So anyway, all right.